If I had to guess, some people are probably wondering why Jennifer had this thing where she believed that every male character in the show was in love with Freddie, but then Jennifer went on to brainwash only female people. That is biologically, because some of them didn't identify as that, but a lot of them did. Roxy never identified as transgender or male, nor did Hannibal, not at the time, because, as I've mentioned, Hannibal told me in a conversation that he did not identify as male, nor was he transgender. However, the reason I refer to him as a he is because there are people who get very, 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 very upset if I go with she, even though Hannibal made it clear to me that they did not identify as transgender and had no plans of transitioning to male. Somehow, me saying this is very transphobic when that's just what happened. Then we also have Lauren, who identified as female when she first started to go visit Jennifer. So we have 3 female identifying people within this group that Jennifer also wanted to be in a sexual relationship with. Now, there's another thing that a lot of my detractors like to say I'm lying about, even though I'm not, is that for a period of time, Lauren did tell people that she was trans, or she thought she was, and that she wanted to be male. She wanted to be a man. This was a period of time, maybe only a few months, but it was brought on by Jennifer. And during this period of time, she was referred to by male pronouns, and people typically called her Frederick. And once again, this was because of Jennifer. A lot of people who weren't involved in this, who weren't there, who didn't see what was going on, will tell you that this never happened, that Lauren never identified as trans, and that I'm lying. But I'm not, because this did happen. It was just for a very short period of time. I am saying that yes, Jennifer pushed Lauren into this idea that she might be trans, and Lauren did accept it for a period of time when she was living with Jennifer. And then after a while, from what I know, Lauren went from that to just identifying as non-binary. So why would Jennifer only pick females or biological females to do this? Well, my theory is that Jennifer was a lesbian, or is a lesbian, I guess is more accurate. But she was in some level of denial about this because for whatever reason, she didn't want to be a lesbian. And then there was this weird thing where she was oddly transphobic, but only to actual people who had like transitioned. But if it was somebody like Hannibal, who was cosplaying as a male character or role-playing as a male character, but had no ambitions to transition to male, same with Roxy, then that was fine with her. As long as this person was pretending to be male, that was fine. It seemed that what crossed the line for her and when she would freak out was if a female identified as male and then took hormones and went through surgery and actually transitioned through the legal channels to become male. At that point, Jennifer got really incredibly upset and transphobic about it. And I know this because of the fact that there was a person who was friends with Lauren, and he was a really nice guy. What I found out was that he also knew Jennifer, I believe before he had legally become male. So he, at the time, was identifying as male, but not legally male. And Jennifer knew that he identified as trans in this period and that he was going to transition. Jennifer was seemingly okay with this and was fine with Lauren being friends with this guy until he legally became male. Once that happened, for whatever reason, Jennifer started all these rumors about him, and it was just awful. She would take cosplay pictures that he did, like Hannibal cosplay pictures that were obviously cosplay, and then she would say, look, he's posing with a knife, he's dangerous. And she accused him of stalking Lauren and being obsessed with Lauren. just for talking to her or commissioning her art. And keep in mind, Lauren was an artist. People did buy art from her, and he actually did pay her for the art. He wasn't like trying to steal from her. He was just friendly with her. And the only thing that seemingly changed within this time period to make Jennifer as upset as she was the fact that he had legally become male. This also seemed to have happened with Roxy's partner, who identified as male but hadn't transitioned to male yet legally. Jennifer was okay with that with this person who was dating Roxy until this person transitioned and legally became male. After that point was when Jennifer decided that this person was really abusive and that Roxy needed to leave him because he was awful. This is what I mean by Jennifer being really transphobic. But in a weird way, she wanted all of her partners to at least pretend to be men. But if any of them actually like resembled men or took hormones or got surgery or whatever, that's not what she wanted. She wanted them to be biologically female just to have them pretend to be male or cosplay as it. This leads back to what I was saying about me believing that she's a lesbian, she's just in denial. And I had confronted her on this quite a few times, like trying to understand like what the mentality was here. And she would always say that she was straight, that she had no problem with gay people, she had no problem with lesbians. In fact, she tweeted this whole thing about getting Brian Fuller to make Freddie Lounds a lesbian in the show, and then that picked up steam, and then because Brian Fuller's so full of himself and he loves to do fan service, he just randomly announced that Freddie was a lesbian, because whatever the fuck at this point. She was okay with that, but then she would say she was straight. And then if you were to say something like, well, Roxy is a woman, which Roxy is, and that's how she identifies. She was never trans, nor did she ever identify as trans. She only role-played or cosplayed as a male. But if you were to ask Roxy herself, she would identify as female and she would identify as a lesbian. That was what was so confusing about it, because Jennifer insisted up and down that she was straight and that she was dating men. And I would be like, no, you're like with females, you're with biological females. And she would then pull out this whole thing like, well, you can't say that because you're transphobic if you don't agree that they're male. And I'm like, none of them even identify as male. If you talk to them, none of them identify as male. They cosplay men and they role play men, but none of them would say that they were men. Like, none of them would say that. And she thought just because they dressed up like men and they used male names and pronouns for this role play thing that she was doing, that they were men, that she was straight. And if you were to say anything against this, that meant you were transphobic. It's kind of like how the people who are trying to say that I'm transphobic, like they just cherry pick the argument, even though all I'm doing is repeating a story and saying facts that none of these three women ever identified officially as men. And that's why I was always so confused about it. And I think that much like in the Final Fantasy VII story, because other people brought this up in the Final Fantasy VII story, where Jennifer also said that she was straight and nobody understood that because she was sleeping with women, Jennifer has some weird problem with labeling herself as a lesbian. I don't have an explanation as to why, but she definitely does, because since the whole situation in the Final Fantasy VII house, she's been saying that she's heterosexual. And she very, very clearly isn't, because of her choice in partners and because of really how she controlled them, and the fact that, as far as I know, there are no biological males involved in this at all. No person who was born male at birth, or however you phrase it politically correct these days, there was no person like that ever involved in any of her cult. It was always people who were assigned female at birth, but they either identified as male, or they were non-binary, or they identified as female. This was like the weirdest thing, because it just didn't make any sense that she would say that she was heterosexual when she very, very clearly wasn't.